The neon sign outside flickered twice before dying completely, leaving only the red glow from the bar's exit sign to paint the room in shades of warning. It was 3:47 in the morning and Mina's feet had stopped hurting 2 hours ago, which meant they'd crossed into the numb territory that promised hell when she finally sat down. The last customer should have left at 3. He hadn't. He was still there, slumped over the corner booth with his head tilted back against the cracked leather, expensive suit jacket draped carelessly across the seat beside him, one hand dangling toward the floor. Empty glass on the table. Another on the floor by his polished shoes. The kind of shoes that cost more than her rent. She'd seen this before. Too many times. Men who thought money bought them extra hours, extra attention, extra access to women who just wanted to go home. The owner had left at midnight, trusting her to close alone because she always did, because she needed the job, because complaining meant finding somewhere else to work, and nowhere else paid enough to cover her brother's medical bills. So she cleaned the tables that didn't need cleaning, and wiped down the bar that was already spotless, and waited for the drunk in the expensive suit to either wake up or pass out completely. He didn't move, just sat there breathing slowly, chest rising and falling beneath a black shirt that probably cost what she made in a week. His face was turned slightly away, half-shadow, sharp jawline catching what little light remained, dark hair falling across his forehead. She couldn't see his eyes. That should have been her first warning. Mina walked over, tray balanced on one hip, cleaning cloth in her other hand. Professional smile gone because there was no one left to see it. "Sir, we closed 47 minutes ago. I need you to leave." Nothing, no response, not even a flicker of acknowledgement. She tried again, louder this time, letting her exhaustion sharpen her tone. "Sir, I'm closing. You need to go." Still nothing. Her patience, already worn thread-thin by 8 hours of forced politeness and wandering hands disguised as accidents, snapped clean through. She dealt with entitled drunks before. She knew exactly how this would go. He'd mumble something incoherent, maybe try to grab her wrist when she got close, definitely leave without tipping, possibly vomit on the floor she'd just mopped. She was so tired of this. So tired of men who thought the world paused for their convenience. Mina stepped closer, right up to the booth, and raised her voice. "I said we're closed. Get up or I'm calling the police." His head lolled slightly to the side. Still no response. That subtle movement looked almost deliberate, almost mocking, and something in her chest ignited. She'd been polite. She'd been patient. She'd given him time. Now she was done. She reached out and shoved his shoulder, hard enough to rock him forward. "Get up." His eyes opened. That should have been her second warning. They weren't glazed with alcohol or heavy with sleep. They were completely, unnervingly clear. Dark and sharp and focused directly on her with an intensity that turned her irritation into something colder. But she was already moving, already committed, already too angry to process what those eyes meant. "Don't touch me with that look on your face," she snapped, exhaustion and frustration colliding into recklessness. "I'm not your servant and I'm not whatever fantasy you're." His hand moved. Just slightly, fingers lifting from where they'd been resting against his thigh, a small gesture that might have been dismissive or might have been something else entirely. She didn't care. She was past caring, past thinking, past every careful calculation that had kept her safe through 3 years of late-night shifts. She slapped him across the face. The sound cracked through the empty bar like a gunshot. Her palms stung. His head turned with the impact, sharp enough to scatter strands of dark hair across his forehead, controlled enough that she realized immediately he'd let it happen. Could have stopped her hand before it ever made contact. Chose not to. The silence that followed felt alive. He turned his head back slowly, deliberately, his cheek already blooming red in the exact shape of her hand. His expression hadn't changed. Not anger, not surprise, something far more dangerous, something that looked almost like interest. His lips curved barely into something that might have been a smile if smiles were supposed to make your survival instincts scream. "Again," he said. His voice was quiet, calm, the kind of calm that came from absolute certainty, from knowing with complete conviction that nothing she did could actually hurt him. It was the tone someone used when they were genuinely curious about what would happen next, when they had all the time in the world and no concept of consequences, because consequences were things that happened to other people. Mina's hand was still raised, frozen in the air between them, her brain finally catching up to what her anger had done. The red mark on his face, the complete stillness of his body. The way he was looking at her like she'd just done something fascinating instead of unforgivable. Her heart slammed against her ribs, adrenaline flooding her system 3 seconds too late to be useful. Her voice came out wrong, too high, too uncertain. She lowered her hand slowly, trying to recover some scrap of the righteous anger that had carried her this far. You need to leave, now. He tilted his head slightly, studying her the way someone might study an unexpected puzzle piece that didn't fit the picture they'd been building. What's your name? That's none of your business. She took a step back, her hip hitting the edge of the next booth, escape route calculating itself in the back of her mind. 3 steps to the bar, phone under the register, pepper spray in her bag, kitchen exit past the storage room. I'm calling the police. Are you? It wasn't a question. He still hadn't moved from his position, still sprawled across the booth like he owned it, like he owned the entire building, like the concept of threat was something that happened in a different world than the one he occupied. What will you tell them? That there's a drunk man refusing to leave private property. I'm not drunk. He said it simply, stating fact, and she knew with absolute certainty that he was telling the truth, had probably been telling the truth the entire time, had been sitting there completely sober, completely aware, watching her clean and pace and work herself into fury. Try again. Her mouth went dry. It doesn't matter, you still need to leave. I will. He shifted then, just enough to lean forward, elbows resting on his knees, bringing his face into better light. The red mark was already fatting but still visible. His eyes never left hers. After you tell me your name. No. Why not? Because you're... She stopped, trying to find words for the warning bells screaming in her head. The way every instinct she had was telling her that this man was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with volume or threats or visible anger. Because I don't know you. You know what I taste like. He touched his lip where her palm had caught the corner of his mouth, that almost smile returning. That's more intimate than names. Heat flooded her face, embarrassment mixing with fear mixing with something else she didn't want to examine. That was a mistake. Was it? Again, not a question. He stood up and the booth that had seemed spacious suddenly felt small. He wasn't particularly tall, maybe 5'10", but he moved with absolute economy, no wasted motion, every gesture precise. His suit jacket stayed draped over the seat. He didn't reach for it. You meant to slap someone else. I meant to wake up a drunk customer who wouldn't leave. But I'm not drunk. He took 1 step toward her, just one. She pressed harder against the booth behind her. And I'm not a customer, I own the building. The floor dropped out from under her feet. No, that wasn't possible. She'd worked here for 3 years, had signed her employment contract with an overseas investment company, had never met anyone from management, had dealt exclusively with Mr. Kim, who ran the day-to-day operations, and who'd assured her repeatedly that the owners were silent partners who never visited the property. You're lying. He reached into his pocket and her entire body tensed, ready to run, ready to fight, ready for anything except what he pulled out. A key, simple, brass, attached to nothing. He held it up between 2 fingers. This opens the door you locked 47 minutes ago. Want to test it? She didn't. She believed him. Looking at his face now, really looking without anger clouding her vision. She could see the resemblance to the man in the faded photograph hanging in Mr. Kim's office. Same sharp jawline, same dark eyes, same exact expression of remote assessment. The caption beneath the photo read, "Founding Partner," in Korean characters she'd learned to read but never bothered translating completely because it didn't affect her paycheck. I didn't know, she said, and hated how small her voice sounded. I thought you were. A drunk. He pocketed the key again. Yes, you mentioned that. What else did you think? That you were dangerous, that you were entitled, that you were exactly like every other man who'd ever made her wait past closing, made her feel small, made her scared. She'd been wrong about the first part. He was dangerous, but not in any way she'd understood before this moment. "Nothing," she said. "I apologize, it won't happen again." "No." He took another step closer and she had nowhere left to go, pressed completely against the booth now, breathing too fast. He stopped just outside her personal space, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, cedar and smoke. "It won't happen again because next time you'll know who I am. But I didn't ask for an apology. I asked what you thought." Her hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs so he wouldn't see. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." "Why?" "Because," he paused, and for the first time something flickered across his face that wasn't perfect control. Interest, maybe, genuine curiosity. "Because no one has touched me without permission in 6 years, and no one has ever looked at me the way you just did." "How did I look at you?" "Like I was ordinary." His almost smile widened, just fractionally, and it transformed his entire face into something beautiful and terrifying. "Like I was just another drunk taking up space in your bar. Like I was nothing." The way he said that last word made her stomach clench. Like being nothing was the most valuable thing she could have given him. Like she'd handed him something precious without knowing its worth. "I should." She tried to slide sideways, to escape the cage of his proximity without actually touching him, but he shifted his weight, and suddenly the escape route was gone without him ever lifting a hand. "I need to finish closing." "You're done closing." He glanced around the empty bar, taking in the clean tables, the organized shelves, the mopped floors. "You finished 47 minutes ago. You were waiting for me to leave." "Yes." "Why didn't you call the police an hour ago?" Because she'd been afraid of what would happen if she made a scene. Afraid of getting fired. Afraid of losing the income she desperately needed. Afraid of being the problem instead of solving the problem. All the small fears that added up to swallowing anger and waiting for men to decide she was worth respecting. "I'm calling them now," she said, even though they both knew it was a bluff. "No, you're not." He pulled out his phone, expensive and sleek, thumbed it open with one hand. "You're going to tell me your name, and then you're going to go home, and tomorrow morning there will be an additional $2,000 in your account marked as hazard pay." "I don't want your money." "It's not mine. It's yours. You earned it." He gestured vaguely at his face where the red mark had now completely faded. "Danger pay for dealing with difficult customers." "You're not a customer. You just said you own the building." "Then consider it a bonus for teaching me something valuable." "What could I possibly teach you?" He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something move behind his eyes, some calculation she couldn't follow, some decision being made according to rules she didn't understand. "That I've gotten too comfortable. That I've surrounded myself with people who treat me like I'm made of glass and consequence." He pocketed his phone. "Your name." It wasn't a question anymore, wasn't a request, but it also wasn't a threat. It was something else entirely, something that felt more like an exchange, like he was offering her something in return even if she couldn't see it yet. "Mina," she said, and immediately regretted it. "Park Mina." "Mina." He repeated it slowly, like he was tasting the syllables, committing them to memory. "I know who you are." She did now, pieces clicking together. The photograph in Mr. Kim's office, the expensive suit, the way he moved through space like it rearranged itself around him. "You're Kang Jihoon." His expression shifted, just slightly, surprise giving way to something that might have been approval. "You've done your research." "No, I just remembered the photo." She paused, weighing risk against curiosity. "What are you doing here at 3 in the morning?" "Sitting in my bar." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you need." He finally stepped back, giving her space to breathe, and she sucked in air like she'd been underwater. He retrieved his jacket from the booth, shrugged it on with practiced ease. "Go home, Mina. Lock the door behind me. Check your account in the morning." "I don't want." "I know what you want." He turned toward the exit, then paused with his hand on the door. "You want to go home, take off your shoes, stop smiling at people who don't deserve it, stop being afraid every time a man gets too close. You want your brother's medical bills to stop eating everything you earn. You want one full night of sleep without wondering if tomorrow is the day you can't hold it all together anymore. The air left her lungs. How do you? Because I pay attention. He pushed open the door, letting in the cold pre-dawn air and the distant sound of traffic. And because you're not nearly as invisible as you think you are. Lock the door, Mina. I'll see you again. He was gone before she could ask what that meant, the door swinging shut behind him, leaving her alone in the red-lit bar with shaking hands and a racing heart, and the absolute certainty that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to predict. She locked the door, checked it twice, grabbed her bag from behind the bar and left through the kitchen exit like she did every night, but this time she kept looking over her shoulder, kept seeing his face in every shadow, kept hearing his voice saying her name like it was something worth remembering. The subway was nearly empty at this hour, just her and a sleeping businessman and two teenagers still drunk from whatever party had finally ended. She sat by the door, bag clutched in her lap, replaying every second of the encounter, looking for the moment where she could have chosen differently. Could have been smarter, could have seen who he was before she'd put her hand on his face. Again. He'd smiled when he said it, like she'd given him a gift. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with numb fingers, expecting a text from her brother asking when she'd be home, but it was a bank notification. Deposit received. $2,000, just like he'd promised, marked as performance bonus with the bar's business account as the source. She stared at the number until her eyes blurred. $2,000. That was a month of her brother's physical therapy. That was the electric bill and the overdue water payment, and enough left over for actual groceries instead of rice and whatever vegetables were on sale. That was breathing room. That was the difference between drowning and treading water. That was the price of slapping one of the most dangerous men in the city. She should return it, should march back to the bar tomorrow and tell Mr. Kim there'd been a mistake. Should put as much distance between herself and Kang Jihoon as physically possible, because men like that didn't hand out money without expecting something in return. But she didn't. She kept the phone in her hand and watched the deposit notification and felt the first crack form in all the careful walls she'd built to keep herself safe. Because dangerous men didn't explain themselves, didn't acknowledge vulnerability, didn't look at you like you just reminded them what it felt like to be human. The subway lurched to her stop. She got off, climbed the stairs to street level, walked the 4 blocks to her apartment building with her keys threaded between her fingers just in case. The lobby was empty. The elevator was broken again. She took the stairs to the 3rd floor, unlocked her apartment door, and finally let herself breathe. Her brother was asleep on the couch, neck bent at an angle that would hurt in the morning, television still playing some late-night drama with the volume low. His wheelchair was parked beside him, brakes locked. His medication bottles were lined up on the coffee table in careful rows, each one labeled with dosage times in her handwriting. Mina locked the door behind her, threw both deadbolts, and sank down onto the floor with her back against the wall. Her feet screamed as blood flow returned. Her hand still tingled where it had connected with his face. Her bank account had $2,000 it didn't have an hour ago. She was so tired. Had been tired for 3 years, since the accident that had taken their parents and shattered Minsu's spine, since she'd dropped out of university to work full-time, since she'd learned exactly how much a human life cost when measured in hospital bills and physical therapy and medications that insurance wouldn't cover. She should be afraid, should be planning her exit strategy, should be updating her resume and looking for new jobs far away from any business Kang Jihoon owned. Instead, she closed her eyes and remembered the way he'd looked at her, like she was dangerous, like she was interesting, like she'd cracked something open that he hadn't known was closed. Again. Her phone buzzed. Another notification, but this time it was a text from an unknown number, just 4 words. Sleep well, Park Mina. She should delete it, should block the number, should throw her phone across the room and pretend this entire night had never happened. She saved the contact instead, labeled it simply as Jihoon because any other name felt like lying, typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. finally settled on the truth. "How did you get my number?" The response came immediately, like he'd been waiting. "I pay attention." That wasn't an answer, that was a warning. She typed, "What do you want from me?" The 3 dots appeared and disappeared twice before his response came through. "Nothing you're not willing to give. Sleep well." Mina locked her phone and let her head fall back against the wall. Tomorrow she would process this. Tomorrow she would make rational decisions about dangerous men and unexpected money and the way his voice had sounded when he said her name. Tomorrow she would rebuild the walls. Tonight she was too tired to do anything but sleep. She didn't dream. That should have been unusual. She always dreamed, anxiety-twisted nightmares about bills she couldn't pay and brothers she couldn't save and futures that narrowed down to nothing but survival. But tonight the darkness was complete and quiet, and when she woke up 6 hours later she felt almost rested. Her brother was awake, already transferred to his wheelchair, making coffee in the kitchen with the careful efficiency of someone who'd learned to navigate the world from sitting height. He looked up when she emerged from her bedroom, nodding her wrinkled clothes, her unwashed face. "You slept in your uniform," he said. "Bad night." "Strange night." She kissed the top of his head and took the coffee he offered. "I might have done something stupid." "How stupid?" "I slapped someone." Minsu raised an eyebrow. "Finally! Was it the businessman who keeps trying to touch your waist? I told you to carry the pepper spray I bought you." "Different person, and I don't think pepper spray would have helped." She sipped her coffee and tried to figure out how much to tell him. Minsu worried enough without knowing she'd physically assaulted their landlord's boss's boss. Someone important, someone who could have gotten me fired. But didn't. She showed him the bank notification, watched his eyes go wide. "He paid me for it." Minsu scrolled through the deposit information, frowning. "Mina, that's not normal. That's really not normal. Who pays someone for slapping them?" "Someone who thinks it was educational." "That's not better. That's actually more concerning." He handed her phone back. "Are you safe? Do we need to leave? I can ask Yeeman if we can stay with him for a few days while." "We're safe." She said it with more certainty than she felt. "I think we're safe." "You think?" "He had opportunities to hurt me. He didn't take them." She left out the part about how he'd moved, how he'd looked at her, how the danger she'd felt had been potential rather than immediate. "I'm going to the bar tonight for my regular shift. If anything feels wrong, I'll leave immediately." "And you'll text me every hour." "Minsu." "Every hour, or I'm showing up with Yeeman and his baseball bat." Her brother crossed his arms, using the stern expression that always made him look exactly like their father. "You might have slapped someone important, but you're important to me. So you'll text me, or you'll deal with the consequences." "Fine, every hour." She finished her coffee and headed for the shower, stripping off her uniform, washing away the night shift and the fear and the memory of Jihoon's voice saying her name. The water was lukewarm at best. The building's hot water heater was dying slowly, but she stayed under the spray until her skin pruned. When she emerged, Minsu had already left for his morning physical therapy session. The apartment felt too quiet. She tried to read, to watch television, to do anything that would stop her mind from circling back to that red-lit bar and those dark eyes and the feeling of her palm connecting with expensive cologne and smooth skin. Her phone buzzed twice. Both times her heart jumped. Both times it was spam. She left for work at 7, giving herself extra time to walk slowly, to watch for anything unusual. The bar looked exactly like it always did, neon sign flickering in the early evening light, windows showing the usual Thursday crowd. Mr. Kim was working the bar, gesturing animatedly while telling some story to a customer. Everything normal, everything safe. Mina pushed through the door and Mr. Kim looked up, expression shifting from jovial host to something more careful, more calculating. He finished his story, laughed with the customer, then intercepted her before she could reach the employee door. "Mina, office, now." Her stomach dropped. This was it. The firing. The consequence. The price of putting her hands on someone she shouldn't have touched. She followed him into the cramped back office, watching him close the door with unusual care. "I received an interesting phone call this morning," Mr. Kim said, not sitting down, not inviting her to sit, just standing there with his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. "From Mr. Kang personally." "I can explain. He told me what happened last night." Mr. Kim held up a hand. "Before you panic, you're not fired. The opposite, actually. You're being promoted." The floor tilted. "What?" "Head bartender, 15% raise, flexible scheduling, health insurance that includes full coverage for family members." He pulled out a folder from his desk drawer, set it in front of her. "New contract. He wants you to sign it tonight." Mina stared at the folder like it was a bomb. "Why?" "He didn't say. He also didn't give me a choice." Mr. Kim's expression softened slightly. "Whatever you did, whatever happened, you made an impression. Kang Jihoon doesn't call people personally, doesn't involve himself in staffing decisions, doesn't promote bartenders he's never met, except apparently he did meet you, and apparently you impressed him. So," he pushed the folder closer, "sign it, take the promotion, don't ask questions that might change his mind." "What if I don't want it?" "Then you're smarter than I thought and more foolish than I hoped." Mr. Kim sat down heavily in his chair. "That insurance coverage alone is worth more than you make in 6 months. The flexible scheduling means you can actually attend your brother's medical appointments. The raise means you can stop working doubles. You'd be stupid to refuse." He was right. She knew he was right. This was everything she needed, wrapped up in a contract that probably had a dozen hidden clauses, offered by a man who'd smiled when she hit him and said again like violence was entertainment. "I need to read it first." "Of course." Mr. Kim stood up. "Take your time. I'm covering the bar. Come out when you're ready." He left her alone with the folder. She opened it slowly, expecting legalese and traps, but the contract was surprisingly straightforward. Head bartender position. 15% raise calculated off her current hourly wage. Health insurance coverage for her and one dependent, full coverage including prescriptions and specialist care and physical therapy. Flexible scheduling with minimum 30 hours per week, maximum 45, with shift preferences honored whenever possible. It was perfect. It was exactly what she needed. It was too good to be true. At the bottom of the page, below the signature line, was a handwritten note in precise black ink. "You earned this, not because of what happened, because of what you do every night, because you're good at your job and you deserve better than what you've been getting. The rest is just correcting an oversight. KJ." She read it 3 times, looked for the catch, the hidden price. The requirement she'd missed. Found nothing but an offer that would change her life, and a note that suggested he'd been paying attention long before last night. Mina signed the contract. She worked her shift in a daze, mixing drinks by muscle memory, smiling at customers automatically, checking her phone every hour to text Minsu that everything was fine. The bar was busy, Thursday night crowd drinking away their work week, and she was grateful for the distraction. Mr. Kim briefed her on the new responsibilities, introduced her to the inventory system she'd be managing, showed her the office computer where scheduling lived. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Jihoon didn't appear. By midnight, she'd almost convinced herself that was a good thing. That his absence meant she'd been a temporary curiosity, quickly forgotten. That the promotion was guilt or whim or some complicated tax benefit she didn't understand. That she could take his money and his insurance and his flexible scheduling and never see him again. The bar started to empty around 1. Mr. Kim left at 1:30, squeezing her shoulder on his way out. "Lock up when you're ready. No rush. Head bartender sets her own closing time." She nodded, watching him go, turning back to the remaining customers. Just 3 now, all regulars she knew by name, all responsible drinkers who'd settle their tabs and leave without prompting. She started the closing routine, wiping down the bar, collecting empty glasses, queuing up slower music to signal last call without having to say it. The door opened at 1:53. She knew who it was before she looked up. Something about the quality of silence that followed him, the way the remaining customers glanced toward the entrance and then quickly looked away, sudden interest in their drinks, sudden urgency to finish and leave. Jihoon walked to the same booth he'd occupied last night. Same expensive suit, this one charcoal gray, same precise movements, same expression of remote assessment. He sat down without looking at the menu, without calling for service, just folding his hands on the table and waiting. The last 3 customers finished their drinks in record time, left cash on the bar, more than enough to cover their tabs and generous tips, filed out into the night without meeting her eyes. The door swung shut behind them and she was alone with him again. Mina took her time finishing the closing routine, put away the last glasses, wiped down surfaces that didn't need it, gave herself 60 seconds to decide how to play this. Then she walked over to his booth, order pad in hand, professional smile firmly in place. "What can I get you?" "Congratulations on your promotion." His eyes tracked her movements, nodding the order pad, the smile, the careful distance she was maintaining. "Mr. Kim says you signed immediately. I expected more hesitation." "Why would I hesitate? It's a good offer." "It's an exceptional offer. Most people would ask why." "I read the note." She kept her voice level, professional. "You said I earned it." "You did." "Then why would I question it?" She flipped open the order pad, pen ready. "If I've earned something through my work, accepting it isn't charity. It's fair compensation. So, what would you like to drink?" Something flickered across his face. Approval, maybe, or satisfaction. "What would you recommend?" "That depends on what you want. Something to celebrate, something to forget, something to help you sleep. Something to help me remember." The pen stilled against the paper. She looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time since he'd entered. "Remember what?" "That there are still people in this city who see me as ordinary." He leaned back against the booth. "People who don't know my name before I say it, who don't rearrange themselves around my presence, who hit me because they're tired and frustrated, and I was just another obstacle between them and going home." "I apologized for that." "I didn't ask for an apology." He gestured vaguely at the empty bar. "I asked for a drink, something to help me remember what it felt like to be nothing." She should refuse, should explain that making customers feel like nothing wasn't actually good bartender practice, should maintain the professional distance that would keep this interaction safe and bounded. Instead, she closed the order pad and set it aside. "I can't help you with that," she said, "because you're not nothing. You own this building and probably 20 others. You make phone calls that change people's lives. You walk into rooms and everyone else rearranges themselves around you because you're the axis they orbit. I can make you drunk, but I can't make you ordinary. That's not something alcohol can do." "No," he studied her with that same intensity from last night, like she was a puzzle worth solving. "But you did it. For exactly 63 seconds, you looked at me like I was just another drunk taking up space, like I was an inconvenience, like I was worth hitting." His almost smile returned. "Do you know how valuable that is? How rare?" "So you gave me a promotion because I made you feel bad about yourself." "I gave you a promotion because you deserved one. The timing was coincidental." He shifted in his seat, just enough to change the angle of light across his face. "I've been watching this bar's financials for 2 years, seen the employee records, noticed that one particular bartender consistently generates higher revenue, better tips, fewer complaints, and somehow manages to de-escalate situations before they require security intervention. That bartender was being paid the same as everyone else despite being worth 3 times as much. That's bad business. So this is about profit. This is about recognizing value." He paused. "And yes, about profit, but also about the fact that you're good at your job and you were being taken advantage of. I don't like waste. You were wasted potential. And hitting, you had nothing to do with it." "Hitting me was educational." His expression shifted, humor breaking through the careful control. "It taught me I'd gotten too insulated, too surrounded by people who treat every word I say like revelation. I needed someone to cut through that. You did, so thank you." Mina stared at him, trying to reconcile the man sitting in front of her with every story she'd heard about Kang Jihoon. The rumors said he was ruthless, cold, built an empire through calculated violence and strategic intimidation. The man in her bar was asking for drinks that helped him remember being ordinary and thanking her for slapping him. "You're not what I expected," she said. "What did you expect?" "Someone angrier, someone more," she gestured vaguely, trying to find words. "Dangerous." "I am dangerous." He said it simply, statement of fact, no emotion behind it. But danger doesn't require anger. It requires capability and willingness. I have both. Anger would just make me sloppy. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. She believed him. Absolutely. Completely. The calm way he said it, the certainty in his voice, made it more terrifying than any threat could have been. "Then why are you here?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "What do you want from me?" To see if last night was fluke or pattern. He watched her process that. To understand if you treat everyone that way or if I was special. "You were drunk, or I thought you were. I treat drunk people who won't leave the same way. By hitting them. By being direct when politeness fails. And does politeness often fail with drunk men who won't leave?" She thought about lying, about pretending that last night was an aberration, that she was usually sweet and accommodating and safe. But something in his expression suggested he already knew the truth, was just waiting to see if she'd admit it. "Yes," she said. "Men who drink too much often think bartenders are part of the service. Think their tab includes access to our time, our attention, our bodies. Politeness usually fails around hour 2 of them taking up space without ordering drinks. And when it fails, I get creative." She met his eyes. "Usually that means calling security or Mr. Kim or just waiting them out. Sometimes it means being loud enough that they get embarrassed. Last night I was too tired for any of that, so I was direct." "Direct?" He repeated the word like he was tasting it. "Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer I call it assault? Because that's what you could have reported it as. That's what you could have used to justify firing me, blacklisting me, making sure I never worked in the city again." She crossed her arms. "But you didn't. You promoted me instead. So either you're playing some long game I don't understand, or you actually meant what you said about it being educational." "Both." He stood up and she tensed automatically. But he just pulled out his wallet, left $500 bills on the table. "For answering my questions, for being honest, for not pretending you don't know exactly how precarious your situation is. I don't want. I know what you want. I told you that last night." He walked past her toward the door, then paused. "You want security. You want to stop being afraid. You want your brother to have the care he needs without you destroying yourself to pay for it. The promotion gives you some of that. Not all, but some." "What do you want?" She turned to face him. "You keep saying you know what I want. Tell me what you want." He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the calculation again, the decision being made. "I want someone who sees me clearly, who doesn't flinch, who hits me when I deserve it and tells me the truth even when it's uncomfortable." His almost smile returned. "I want someone ordinary enough to make me remember what that felt like, and brave enough to do it while knowing exactly who I am. That's not a fair thing to want." "No," he pushed open the door. "But I didn't get where I am by being fair. Lock the door, Mina. I'll see you again." He was gone before she could respond, leaving her alone with $500 she didn't ask for, and words that felt like both promise and threat. She locked the door, took the money and put it in the register to count later because she couldn't deal with it right now. Finished closing, checking and rechecking that everything was secure. Left through the kitchen exit and walked to the subway with her keys between her fingers and her mind racing. The deposit notification came through while she was on the train. $500 marked as consultation fee. Below it, a text from Jihoon. "For your time, for your honesty, for not lying when the truth was uncomfortable." She typed back, "I didn't consult on anything." His response was immediate. "You told me what I needed to know. That's worth paying for." "And what did you need to know?" "That you're exactly what I thought you were. Rare." Her hands were shaking. She forced them still, typed carefully. "What happens now?" "Now you go home. Sleep, work your shifts, live your life. I'll be around." That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. Sleep well, Park Mina. She stared at the message until her stop, then climbed the stairs and walked home in a fog. Minsu was already asleep, medication bottles lined up on the coffee table, television playing silently. She locked the door, checked it twice, and sank down onto her bed fully clothed. Her phone buzzed one more time. She opened it expecting another message from Jihoon, but it was a notification from the health insurance company. Coverage activated. Dependent added. Full benefits available immediately. She pulled up the policy details and felt her throat close. It wasn't just good insurance. It was exceptional. 0 deductible. No copays. Full coverage for prescriptions, specialists, physical therapy, medical equipment. The kind of policy that cost more per month than she made in 3. The kind of policy that would change Minsu's life. The kind of policy that came with strings attached whether or not they were visible yet. Mina closed her phone and let her head fall back against the pillow. She should be afraid. Should be planning exit strategies. Should be putting distance between herself and Kang Jihoon before the price of his attention became clear. Instead, she fell asleep thinking about the way he'd said her name, like it was something worth remembering, like she was something rare. She dreamed that night, not anxious nightmares about bills and futures, but something different. Dark eyes and quiet voices, and the feeling of being seen clearly for the first time in 3 years. She woke up with her heart racing and sunlight streaming through her window, and the absolute certainty that her life had already changed, was still changing, would continue changing in ways she couldn't control. Her brother was making breakfast when she emerged, whistling something cheerful. He looked up and grinned. The insurance came through. Physical therapy called this morning. They can see me 3 times a week instead of once. They said the new coverage is exceptional. Where did it come from? Work benefit, not quite a lie, part of the promotion. That's amazing. Minsu abandoned his eggs and wheeled over to hug her. Mina, this is life-changing. Do you know what this means? I could actually improve. Could maybe even walk again someday. This is everything. She hugged him back and tried to ignore the weight settling in her chest. This was everything. This was exactly what they needed. This was the price of being noticed by a man who paid attention and demanded honesty and smiled when you hit him. Her phone buzzed. She knew who it was without looking. Good morning. How did you sleep? She should ignore it, should delete the message, should draw a line before this went any further than it already had. She typed back, like someone who's made questionable decisions. His response came immediately. Welcome to my world. Coffee later. I work tonight. After your shift then, assuming you don't slap me again. Despite everything, she smiled. No promises. Good, I'd hate for you to become predictable. The dots appeared and disappeared twice before his final message came through. By the way, the insurance covers mental health too. Therapy, counseling, support groups, for both of you, just in case the person carrying the weight wants help with that. Mina stared at the message until her eyes burned. He was paying attention, really paying attention. Not just to what she did, but to what she carried, what she needed, what 3 years of survival had cost her. Thank you, she typed, and meant it despite every warning bell screaming in her head. You earned it. See you tonight. She put her phone down and looked at her brother, at his hopeful expression and his excited planning for increased physical therapy sessions, and made a decision. She would take the insurance and the promotion and the money, would let Minsu have the care he needed, would accept the help that had appeared in the form of a dangerous man who seemed to see through every wall she'd built. But she wouldn't lie to herself about the price, wouldn't pretend this was charity or coincidence, would keep her eyes open and her instincts sharp, and would remember that men like Kang Jihoon didn't give things away without expecting something in return. She just had to figure out what he expected before the bill came due. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm of normal and not normal. Mina worked her shifts, managing schedules and inventory and training new bartenders. The job was easier with better pay and flexible hours. Minsu's physical therapy intensified, his progress visible week by week, his spirits higher than she'd seen them since the accident. The bills that had haunted her for 3 years became manageable. For the first time in recent memory, she could breathe. And every Thursday, Jihoon appeared. Always the same time, between 1:30 and 2 in the morning when the bar was nearly empty. Always the same booth. Always the same patient waiting. He never ordered drinks, never made demands, just sat there until she finished closing and came to talk to him. They talked about ordinary things, books, weather, city news, her brother's progress. He asked careful questions and listened to her answers like they mattered. Never touched her. Never made her feel cornered. Just paid attention, with that same intensity from the first night. It should have been uncomfortable. Should have felt like stalking or obsession or the prelude to demands she couldn't refuse. Instead, it felt like being known. Like having someone who saw clearly without judgment, who noticed what she carried without trying to take it from her. The money kept appearing. $500 one week for consultation. $1,000 the next for overtime. $2,000 marked as bonus. She stopped arguing about it after the second week, just transferred it to savings and tried not to think about the running total. Other things changed too. Drunk customers who used to get handsy suddenly backed off the moment they reached for her. Men who wouldn't take no for an answer left quietly when she asked. The regulars who'd always been respectful became almost protective, like someone had made it clear that she was under different rules now. She didn't have to ask who. She could see the calculation in Mr. Kim's eyes, the way he watched her interactions with Jihoon and clearly decided to stay out of whatever was developing. Could feel the weight of invisible protection settling around her like armor she hadn't asked for. It should have bothered her more than it did. By week 4, she'd almost convinced herself this was sustainable, that she could accept the help and the attention without owing anything she wasn't willing to give. That Jihoon meant what he said about waiting for willingness. Then Lee Sangwoo walked into the bar. She knew him immediately, though they'd never met. Knew him from her brother's bitter recounting of the accident, from police reports and insurance documents, and the civil suit that had gone nowhere because money bought lawyers and lawyers bought silence. Lee Sangwoo, drunk driver, son of a city councilman, never served time, barely paid a fine, walked away from the accident that killed her parents and paralyzed her brother with nothing more than a suspended license and a slap on the wrist. He walked into her bar at midnight on a Thursday, surrounded by 3 friends who were already loud with alcohol, and Mina felt 3 years of carefully controlled rage crack open. She served them. What else could she do? They were paying customers. They hadn't done anything wrong in this moment. The fact that Lee Sangwoo had destroyed her life 3 years ago didn't give her the right to refuse service now. But her hands shook when she poured their drinks. Her smile felt like broken glass. And when Lee Sangwoo looked at her, really looked at her, lingering on her face and her body with the casual assessment of someone who'd never been told no, something in her chest went nuclear. "You're pretty," he said, drunk and slurring. "What time do you get off work?" "Late," she said, voice flat. "I can wait." He leaned across the bar, too close, breath thick with expensive whiskey. "Keep me company until then. I'll make it worth your while." His friends laughed. One of them said something crude. Lee Sangwoo grinned like he'd just made a generous offer instead of a threat. Mina set down the bottle she was holding with exaggerated care, because if she didn't put it down, she was going to break it across his face. "I'm not interested." "Come on, don't be like that." He reached across the bar, tried to touch her hand. "Just one drink after your shift, what's the harm?" "The harm," she stepped back, out of reach, every muscle locked tight with the effort of not screaming, "is that I said no. Now finish your drinks and leave." "We just got here." "And now you're leaving." Her voice came out too sharp, too loud. The bar went quiet. Mr. Kim looked up from the other end. "Out, now." Lee Sangwoo's expression shifted from drunk friendliness to ugly anger. "You can't kick us out. We haven't done anything." "You're harassing staff. That's enough." "Harassing?" He laughed, loud and performative. "I asked you for a drink. That's not harassment. That's called being friendly. Maybe you should learn the difference before you make accusations that could get you fired." "I'm head bartender. I can refuse service for any reason. You're refused. Leave." His friends started muttering, pulling at his sleeves. clearly recognizing that this was escalating badly. But Lee Sangwoo shook them off, face flushing red, drunk enough to be stupid but not drunk enough to forget how to be threatening. Do you know who I am? Classic last resort of mediocre men. My father is. I know exactly who you are. The words came out cold and clear and final. I know your name. I know your face. I know what you did 3 years ago, and I know you walked away from it because your father bought your way out. I know everything about you, Lee Sangwoo, and I'm still telling you to get out of my bar. The silence that followed was absolute. Lee Sangwoo stared at her, shock sobering him faster than coffee, and she saw the moment recognition clicked. Saw him remember the accident, remember the lawsuit, remember the family he'd destroyed. You, his face went from red to pale. You're the daughter, the sister, I didn't. Get out. I didn't know. Get out. He got out. All 4 of them, stumbling over each other in their hurry to leave. Lee Sangwoo looking back once with something like fear or maybe guilt before the door swung shut behind them. Mina stood behind the bar with her hands pressed flat against the wood, breathing hard, every customer in the room staring at her. Mr. Kim started toward her, but she held up a hand, stopping him. She was fine. She was holding together. She just needed a minute. The door opened again. She looked up, ready to finish what she'd started if Lee Sangwoo had come back, and saw Jihoon instead. He stopped just inside the entrance, took in the scene, her rigid posture, the staring customers, the tension thick enough to choke on, and his expression went flat and cold in a way she'd never seen before. What happened? Not a question, a demand. Nothing. She forced her hands to relax, forced herself to move normally. Just removed some problem customers. Everything's fine. He looked at Mr. Kim, who was pale and sweating. What happened? Lee Sangwoo was here. Mr. Kim's voice shook slightly. Mina recognized him, asked him to leave. Lee Sangwoo. Jihoon repeated the name with no inflection, no emotion. Then he walked to the bar, gestured for Mina to follow him to the back office. Now. She went, not because she was afraid, though maybe she should have been, but because the alternative was having this conversation in front of everyone. He closed the office door behind them and turned to face her with an expression that made her survival instincts scream. Tell me what happened, all of it. So she did. The harassment, the recognition, the confrontation. The way Lee Sangwoo had looked at her like she was nothing until she'd made him remember that she was someone, was a person he'd hurt, was a consequence he'd thought he'd escaped. Jihoon listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, and she watched something dangerous move behind his eyes. Lee Sangwoo, he said finally, is the drunk driver who killed your parents. Yes. And paralyzed your brother. Yes. And walked away with a suspended license. Yes, her voice broke on the word. He walked into my bar, looked at me like I was nothing, like he hadn't destroyed my entire life, like he had the right to ask me out for drinks. Jihoon's hands flexed once, controlled violence, then went still. Where does he live? I don't what? Where does he live? Repeated with the same calm he'd used to ask about the weather. His address. Where does Lee Sangwoo live? Why do you need to know that? Because I'm going to pay him a visit. He said it simply, statement of fact. Tonight, after your shift, I'm going to explain to him that there are places in this city he's not welcome anymore, starting with this bar, including anywhere you might be. You can't. I can. He met her eyes. I will. The only question is whether you want to know the details or if you'd prefer plausible deniability. Jihoon. He hurt you. There was something in his voice now, underneath the calm, something that made her think of earthquakes hidden under still water. He destroyed your family. He walked away from it. And tonight he had the audacity to come into your space, your place of work, and make you uncomfortable. That's not acceptable. That requires correction. Correction. Yes. What kind of correction? The kind that ensures he understands his mistake. The kind that makes certain he never repeats it. His expression didn't change. The kind that leaves marks. Her heart was hammering. She should say no. Should stop this before it started. Should draw a line and mean it. His father is a city councilman, she said instead. If you hurt him. His father is a minor politician with delusions of importance. I've ended careers for less. He tilted his head slightly. Do you want me to stop? Say the word and I'll walk away. Lee Sangwoo will leave this bar believing he won, believing he scared you, believing he can come back whenever he wants because you have no power to stop him. Is that what you want? No. Then tell me where he lives. She didn't know, but she knew someone who would. She pulled out her phone, pulled up the lawsuit documents she'd kept saved for 3 years, found the address listed on Lee Sangwoo's deposition, held it up so Jihoon could see. He memorized it instantly. Thank you. What are you going to do? Nothing you need to apologize for. He moved toward the door, then paused. Finish your shift. Go home. Text your brother that you're safe. Tomorrow, Lee Sangwoo will wake up understanding that there are consequences in this world. That's all you need to know. Jihoon. He looked back at her, and she saw it clearly now. The danger she'd sensed from the first night. The capacity for violence that lived under the calm. The absolute certainty that he would do exactly what he said without hesitation or regret. You asked me once what I wanted from you, he said. I want you to stop carrying everything alone. I want you to let me handle the things that require handling. I want you to trust that when I say someone will never bother you again, I mean it. He pulled open the door. So trust me, finish your shift. I'll handle the rest. He was gone before she could argue, before she could explain that this wasn't what she wanted, that she didn't need him to fight her battles, that she could protect herself. Except that was a lie. She couldn't protect herself, not from Lee Sangwoo and his father's money, not from the system that had failed her 3 years ago, not from the reality that men like Lee Sangwoo walked through the world believing they were untouchable because so far they had been. But maybe Kang Jihoon could. Mina finished her shift in a daze, serving drinks mechanically, watching the clock like it would tell her what was happening across the city. Mr. Kim tried to talk to her twice, but she couldn't focus on his questions, couldn't process anything beyond the absolute certainty that something irreversible had been set in motion. She left at 3, took the subway home with her phone clutched in her hand, waiting for a text that didn't come. Minsu was asleep. She locked the door and checked it 3 times and sat on the couch in the dark, waiting. The text came at 4:17. It's handled. He understands now. Sleep well, Park Mina. Just that, nothing about what handled meant, nothing about what understands involved, nothing but confirmation that whatever had needed to happen had happened. She should feel guilty, should feel horror or disgust or moral outrage, should be planning how to distance herself from whatever Jihoon had done. Instead, she felt relief, visceral, overwhelming, shameful relief, because Lee Sangwoo had walked away from destroying her family and now someone had made him pay for it, not legally, not officially, but in a way that would make him remember, make him understand, make him afraid. She typed back, "Thank you." His response was immediate. "You don't need to thank me. You just need to trust me." "I do." The words appeared on her screen before she could stop them. "I trust you." "Good, that's all I need. Sleep now. I'll see you next Thursday." Mina put her phone down and let her head fall back against the couch. She was in so far over her head, was tangled in something dangerous and complicated and wrong on every legal and moral level. And she didn't want to stop. She fell asleep there, on the couch with her clothes still on, and dreamed of dark eyes and quiet voices and the feeling of being protected by the most dangerous person in the room. When she woke up, sunlight was streaming through the windows and Minsu was making coffee and her phone had another notification. Not from Jihoon, from the news. City councilman's son hospitalized after home invasion. Lee Sangwoo, 27, found unconscious in his apartment early this morning. Police investigating. No suspects. Victim's condition stable but severe trauma reported. Father calling for full investigation. She read it 3 times, looked for details that might tell her what severe trauma meant. found nothing but speculation and political posturing from Lee Sangwoo's father demanding justice. Justice, the word tasted like ash. She deleted the news article and put her phone away and drank the coffee Minsu handed her and tried to pretend that everything was normal, that she hadn't just become complicit in violence, that the man who'd been paying attention and offering protection and making her feel safe wasn't the same man who'd put Lee Sangwoo in the hospital. Her phone buzzed, another text from Jihoon. Don't read the news. Don't worry about consequences. Don't carry guilt that isn't yours. You did nothing wrong. I made a choice. Own your relief if you feel it, but don't apologize for it. She stared at the message. He knew. Of course he knew. He paid attention. He'd known exactly what she'd be feeling this morning and had sent her permission to feel it without shame. I'm not sorry, she typed back. Good, neither am I. See you Thursday. Thursday came, and the next Thursday, and the one after that. The news about Lee Sangwoo faded into background noise, investigation ongoing, no suspects, father's political posturing going nowhere. Lee Sangwoo never came back to the bar, never sent messages, never showed his face anywhere near her. Jihoon appeared every Thursday like clockwork. They talked. He asked questions. She gave honest answers. The money kept appearing. The protection became more obvious, customers who wouldn't leave, finding themselves escorted out by security she'd never seen before. Men who got aggressive, discovering sudden urgent business elsewhere. She stopped questioning it, stopped fighting it, just accepted that this was her life now, ordinary woman, dangerous protection, careful balance between normal and not normal. By week 8, she'd stopped checking over her shoulder, stopped feeling afraid on the subway late at night, stopped worrying about what would happen if someone else like Lee Sangwoo walked into her bar, because she knew what would happen, had seen it happen, would happen again if needed. She was safe. For the first time in 3 years, she was genuinely, completely safe. And the price was simple. Trust the most dangerous man in the city to keep paying attention. On Thursday of week 9, Jihoon arrived at the usual time but didn't sit in his usual booth. Instead, he came directly to the bar, leaned against it with unusual casualness and said, I have a proposition. Mina's hands stilled on the glass she was drying. What kind of proposition? The kind that requires a longer conversation than we can have here. He gestured toward the door. Close early, have coffee with me. Hear me out before you decide. Decide what? Whether you want to continue as we have been or if you're ready for something more deliberate. His eyes held hers. I've been patient. I've waited for you to trust me. I think we're there now. So I'm asking, close early, have coffee with me and let me explain what I'm offering. And if I say no? Then I come back next Thursday and we continue exactly as we have been. He straightened up. No pressure, no consequences, just an offer. She should say no, should maintain the distance that kept this manageable, should refuse to let this go any further than it already had. Give me 20 minutes to close, she said instead. His smile was quick and genuine and made her heart stutter. I'll wait. She closed in 15, Mr. Kim raising an eyebrow but saying nothing when she told him she was leaving early. Grabbed her bag, locked the doors, and walked out into the cold pre-dawn air where Jihoon was waiting. A car pulled up. Black, expensive, driver in the front seat who didn't look back when she slid into the rear beside Jihoon. The door closed with a solid thunk, and suddenly they were moving, gliding through empty streets toward some destination she hadn't agreed to but wasn't afraid of. Where are we going? She asked. Coffee shop that opens early, 3 blocks from here. You'll be able to walk home after if you choose. He gestured vaguely at the driver. Or Sanghoon will take you wherever you want to go. This is a conversation, Mina, not a kidnapping. I didn't think it was. But you thought about it. His almost smile returned. You're wondering if you've misjudged this entire situation, if I'm actually dangerous in ways you haven't seen yet, if tonight is when the bill comes due. Aren't you? Dangerous in ways I haven't seen. Yes, he said it simply. But not to you, never to you, that's what I want to explain. The car stopped outside a small coffee shop with warm lights and empty tables. Jihoon thanked the driver, held the door for her, guided her inside with a hand that never quite touched her back, but made it clear where he wanted her to go. They sat in the corner booth. A server appeared with coffee already prepared exactly how she liked it, cream, no sugar, and she realized he'd called ahead. "You knew I'd say yes," she said. "I hoped you'd say yes. There's a difference." He wrapped his hands around his own cup, dark and unsweetened. "But if you'd said no, I would have canceled the reservation and gone home. This only works if you're willing." "What only works?" "Everything I'm about to propose." He took a breath, and she watched him choose his words carefully, precisely. "For 9 weeks, I've been appearing in your bar, having conversations, watching you work, learning who you are beyond that first night when you hit me, and everything I've learned has confirmed what I suspected from the beginning." "Which is?" "That you're exactly what I need." He set down his cup. "I need someone who sees me clearly, who isn't impressed by my reputation or frightened by my resources or interested in my money beyond what it can practically provide. I need someone who will tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who will call me on my bullshit. Someone ordinary enough to keep me grounded and brave enough to do it consistently." "That's a job description." "It is. It's the job description of someone I want in my life permanently. But I'm not offering you employment, Mina. I'm offering you partnership." Her throat went dry. "What kind of partnership?" "The kind where I continue to pay attention, continue to protect you, continue to make your life easier in whatever ways I can. In exchange, you let me. You stop fighting the money. Stop questioning the protection. Stop treating this like a temporary arrangement that might end when I get bored or you disappoint me." He leaned forward. "I don't get bored. You won't disappoint me. This is permanent if you want it to be." "You're talking about," she couldn't say it, couldn't put words to what he was offering. "I'm talking about being in your life, consistently, deliberately, with full transparency about what I do and who I am and what it means to accept protection from someone like me." His voice stayed level, factual. "I'm not offering romance, not yet. Maybe not ever if that's not what you want. What I'm offering is security, safety, the knowledge that nothing will hurt you without going through me first." "Why me?" "Because you hit me and meant it. Because you look at me like I'm ordinary. Because you're the first person in 6 years who's treated me like a human being instead of a weapon or a resource or a threat." He held her gaze. "And because I pay attention, Mina. I see what you carry. I see how tired you are. I see how much you've given up to keep your brother alive. And I have the resources to make that easier. All I need is your permission to use them." "What do you get out of this?" "Someone real, someone honest, someone who will keep me from becoming the monster everyone already thinks I am." His almost smile appeared. "And someone who will slap me when I deserve it." Despite everything, she laughed, short and startled and slightly hysterical. "You're insane." "Probably." He waited while she processed, while she turned his offer over in her mind looking for the trap. "But I'm also sincere. This is what I want. The question is whether it's something you're willing to consider." "And if I say no?" "Then we continue as we have been. I show up on Thursdays, we talk, I help where I can, nothing changes. You lose nothing by refusing except the certainty that I'm committed long-term." He took a sip of coffee. "But if you say yes, things change. You stop working yourself to death. Your brother gets the best care available. You get protection that means you never have to be afraid again. And I get someone in my life who sees me clearly." "You're asking me to let you take care of me." "I'm asking you to stop carrying everything alone," he corrected gently. "I'm asking you to trust that I'll handle the things that require handling. I'm asking you to let me be useful." She stared into her coffee, watching cream swirl and thinking about Lee Sangwoo, about security that appeared from nowhere, about money that kept showing up, about insurance and promotions and the way Jihoon looked at her like she was rare. "What would this look like practically?" she asked. "Your brother's medical bills get paid, directly. No more stress about coverage or costs. Your apartment lease gets bought out so you own it outright. Security that you'll never see but will always be there. Money that appears regularly, enough that you can work because you want to, not because you have to." He paused. "And me, present, consistently, making sure nothing touches you that you don't want touching you." "That's..." She couldn't find words for how excessive it was, how much he was offering, how completely it would change everything. "That's what I have to give," he said it simply. "Money is the least valuable thing I own. Attention is more precious. Protection is most precious. I'm offering you all three. What do you want in return?" "Your honesty, your time, your willingness to see me clearly and tell me when I'm wrong." He met her eyes. "And your trust that I'll keep you safe." "That's not a fair trade." "It's the only trade I'm interested in." Mina sat back against the booth, trying to process what he was asking, trying to understand if this was generosity or something more complicated, trying to figure out if accepting would make her complicit in violence or just practical about survival. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Of course." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then showed her the screen. "This is my personal number, not the one I've been texting from. This one goes directly to me, no filters. Call or text when you've decided. Take as long as you need." She saved the number, labeled it just Jihoon like before, and put her phone away. They finished their coffee in silence, not uncomfortable but waited. When she stood up to leave, he stood with her, walked her to the door. "Sangwoo will take you home," he said. "I can walk." "I know you can. Let him drive you anyway. Humor me." She let him drive her, sat in the back seat and watched the city slide past and thought about what it would mean to say yes, to stop fighting, to accept protection from a man who'd put Lee Sangwoo in the hospital without hesitation. She should be horrified, should be planning her exit, should be putting distance between herself and Kang Jihoon before whatever he was offering became a cage. Instead, she was thinking about Minsu's medical bills, about the exhaustion that had lived in her bones for 3 years, about sleeping through the night without nightmares, about never being afraid on the subway again, about being safe. The car stopped outside her building. Sanghoon got out to open her door, professional and silent. She thanked him and walked inside and climbed the 3 flights to her apartment and locked the door behind her. Minsu was awake, reading on the couch, and he looked up with a smile. "You're home early. Good night." "Strange night," she said. "Someone made me an offer." "What kind of offer?" "The kind that would change everything." She sat down beside him. "The kind that would mean you get all the care you need without me working myself to death. The kind that would mean we're safe, really safe." "What's the catch?" "I don't know yet." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Maybe there isn't one. Maybe someone just decided to be generous. Nobody's that generous without wanting something. Maybe he wants something worth giving." She closed her eyes. "I need to think about it." "Then think about it." Minsu squeezed her hand. "But whatever you decide, I trust you. You've kept us alive this long. You'll figure this out too." She went to bed but didn't sleep. Just lay there staring at the ceiling and thinking about Jihoon's offer, about what it would mean to say yes, about whether accepting protection made her smart or weak or complicit, about whether she cared. Her phone was on the nightstand. She picked it up, opened her messages, looked at his personal number, started typing 3 different messages and deleted them all, finally settled on something simple. "I need to know one thing before I decide." His response was immediate. "Ask." "Did you enjoy it, hurting Lee Sangwoo? Did you enjoy making him pay?" The 3 dots appeared and disappeared 4 times before his answer came through. "Yes, I enjoyed watching someone who'd hurt you understand that there are consequences in this world. I enjoyed being useful to you in a way that mattered. I enjoyed knowing that he'll never bother you again because I made certain of it. Does that answer scare you?" She thought about lying, about pretending to be more moral than she felt, about playing the role of someone horrified by violence. "No," she typed back, "it doesn't scare me. It should, but it doesn't." "Then you have your answer." "Do I?" "You're not afraid of me. You're not horrified by what I did. You're not planning to run. You're asking if I enjoyed it because you want to know if this is who I am or if it was an aberration." His next message came before she could respond. "It's who I am. This is what I do. I protect what's mine and I remove threats and I don't apologize for it. If that's unacceptable, say so now. If it's acceptable, If you can live with being protected by someone who'll cross every line to keep you safe, then say yes. She stared at the message for a long time. This was the moment, the choice, the line between before and after. Yes, she typed, I'll say yes, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't lie to me. Promise me you'll tell me the truth about what you do and who you are and what it costs. Promise me you'll keep seeing me clearly even when I accept all of this. The response came immediately. I promise. Now promise me something. What? Promise me you'll stop carrying everything alone. Promise me you'll let me handle the things that require handling. Promise me you'll trust that I mean it when I say you're safe. I promise. Good, sleep well, Park Mina. Everything changes tomorrow. She put her phone down and closed her eyes and felt something in her chest that had been clenched tight for 3 years finally relax. She was making a deal with a dangerous man, was accepting protection that came with violence attached, was choosing safety over morality. And she didn't regret it. She fell asleep thinking about dark eyes and quiet voices and the feeling of being safe with the most dangerous person in the city. When she woke up, everything had already changed. The deed to her apartment was in her mailbox, transferred to her name overnight. Her brother's medical bills were marked paid in full when she checked online. Her bank account had $50,000 marked as security deposit with a note that more would come monthly. And her phone had one last message from Jihoon. Welcome to my world. I'll see you tonight. We have details to discuss. Mina looked at the message and smiled. She just made a bargain with the devil. Except the devil kept his promises and paid attention and made her feel like she mattered more than anyone had in 3 years. She was in so far over her head, was tangled in something dangerous and permanent and probably wrong. And she'd never felt safer in her life. She texted back, I'll be ready. His response was immediate. Good, because I'm just getting started. She believed him, absolutely, completely, and instead of being afraid, she was curious, because Kang Jihoon paid attention, and now, finally, she was letting him. Everything had changed. She was safe, protected, free from fear for the first time in 3 years. And all it cost was trusting the most dangerous man in the city to keep watching, to keep caring, to keep making sure that nothing touched her without going through him first. She'd been right that first night. She was safest the moment the most dangerous man noticed her. And now he'd made it permanent.